monster.
I'm your number one fan.
Now clear your minds. Notice what scares you. It has from the very beginning.
You know, it's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare, huh?
Just been informed that zombies have entered the building. They're at the door. They're coming in.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Midnight Monster Corner podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Frosty. Alongside me, as always, is Corey Peak.
What's going on, guys?
And last but certainly not least, the man, the myth, the legend, Tony Arroyo. I don't know, it just came to me.
Good, I appreciate that.
So it is Roulette week, ladies and gentlemen. For those who have listened to the show, we do this thing where the week after Listener's Choice Week, the very last week of the month, we do what we call Roulette Week. It's where we watch a shit ton of movies from the theme that month. This month happens to be slashers, as well as next month and the month after, we are doing our summer slasher series. So we're going to be watching a lot of slashers. Mm-hmm. We are super excited about that. But it is Roulette Week, which means we have a collection of slasher movies that we've watched. We have chosen one to review. Now, we don't necessarily have to watch a bunch of slashers, but it just makes it fun. And this was something that kind of ran by you guys, and we haven't really had a chance to talk about it, so we'll do it here live. We should come up with rules, right, for the roulette. And I was thinking that, like, if you pick a movie to watch, it should be a movie you haven't seen. I know we haven't really talked about that because, you know, it has given us a chance to go back and revisit a movie. And then again, I mean, this could be my personal rules too. Like, I don't know if this is something you guys want to do, but what I've been doing is picking kind of like blind watching. Like, I'll pick a movie that looks cool and just watch it, you know, like if it sounds like a slasher, okay, cool, watch it. If I start it, I have to finish it, even if it's terrible. And there was a rule that I was using for myself, kind of like a personal rule. It has to be a movie I haven't seen, because last thing I want is to go back and revisit a bunch of movies that I've already seen. So that's kind of like going, you know, from this week forward, Roulette episode. That's what I'll be doing. And any listeners that want to participate with us during Roulette week, maybe that's something you could do. It's a great way to knock out a backlog. If you have a backlog of movies,
It's a great way to do it.
Yeah, just force yourself to say, I'm not going to rewatch any movies I've already seen. I'm just going to pick a bunch of movies I haven't seen, whether on Tubi or your collection. My biggest flaw is I'd never go to my collection. I have a ton of movies in my collection. I always find stuff on Tubi to watch. It drives me crazy. So, but yeah. So yeah, with that being said, I mean, it is Roulette Week. I'm excited. You guys excited?
Oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah, totally.
I love it. I have some interesting movies to talk about.
Oh,
So it's going to be great. It's going to be grand. I did choose more of a modern one from 2006. You guys said y'all picked an older one, which is cool. I almost picked an older one. I think my decision to review this one came kind of last minute. So pretty excited to cover it. But let's just go ahead and knock out housekeeping while we're here. Ladies and gentlemen, you are watching Midnight Monster Corner podcast. We greatly appreciate that. Just a reminder, if you're watching on YouTube, like, share, subscribe, tell your friends. You can find us on iTunes. You can find us on, I guess we call it Apple Podcast now. You can find us on Spotify. Anywhere you can listen to podcasts, check us out. Leave a review. That's the most important thing. Leave a review. Even if you don't have Apple Podcasts, if you can find a way to go on there, log in, and leave us a review there, that would be awesome.
yeah.
And if there's any other podcast outlets you listen to us through, leave us a review there as well. And that would help push the podcast and get our name out there and bump us up in the ratings. And, you know, it'd be nice to be in the top 10, top 20, but just hitting that, I think it's top 250 or top 100. I think it's top 100. You know, if we can at least get to 100 at least once in our life, we can die happy men. But yeah, so leave us a review there. That'd be awesome. We do have a Twitter. Monster_Corner. Follow us there. We have a TikTok, Midnight Monster 20, and where most of our activity comes from is our Facebook. So go to facebook.com, type in Midnight Monster Corner Podcast. It's a closed group. Ask nicely, and we'll let you in. So, without further ado, gentlemen, it is Roulette Week. Who would like to go first? Do you have anything to add? Corey, you said you bought some movies.
I did buy some movies, yeah. I can just skim through those real quick if you want.
Of course. This is like, this is like eye candy for us, man. Just
So the first one I bought, I knew nothing about. Tony told me the body horror in this movie is amazing. It's yeah, correct me if I get this one wrong, Tony.
It's a tough title.
Thanatomorphous.
That's pretty damn close.
Yeah,
we'll go with that.
Yeah,
So,
that's what I'll go with.
seeing where it comes from, it's an unearthed film, so
Yeah.
it's gonna be disgusting.
It's gonna be be
Now, these you bought at that flea market you went to?
No, I bought these. Actually, I bought these two from Brian.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm saving the best for last because it's kind of the holy grail of finds at the flea market.
Did Brian almost have a heart attack from seeing you?
Yeah, he was like, oh my gosh, you're still not dead. He was like, I guess I'll see you next year. Yeah, so, but yeah, and Dog Soldiers,
Yes.
because I didn't have that in the collection.
Mm,
So, the next one,
saving that one for Werewolf Month.
You got there.
I found The Relic.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. It's a little. We just did a review on that a while back.
Yeah, sure did.
Fun one too.
I got White Noise for $1. Can't beat that.
Harrison Ford? Who's in that movie?
No, Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton.
Yeah, Michael Keaton.
I'm thinking Harrison Ford was in What Lies Beneath.
Yeah.
Directed by Robert Zemeckis.
Wow.
Of all people. Yeah.
I got Tony to thank for these two. This is Dracula, Prince of Darkness.
Yeah.
Hammer film.
Let me see that spine.
That's gorgeous.
Oh. Yeah.
It's Anchor Bay.
Yeah, dude.
The Gate.
No, oh, dude.
Yeah.
Hey. Where'd you pick that? You picked that up from Brian?
No.
I actually found it at Second and Charles, man, and they had a when I looked at it, the price wasn't bad. It was like, correct me if I'm wrong, Corey, it was like $3.50 or something like that, $4. And then that was on the front, and then I turned it over and it had one of the dollar stickers on it. So I don't know if they just left it on there and forgot about it, but I said, okay, cool. So took it up to the counter and I said, hey, $1. Okay, sweet. I'll give you $1, man. $1 for the Gate, like you can't. That's a steep.
That's the one. That's the version I used to have.
Yeah, I love that cover. That cover is
sick.
amazing.
That's cool. I like the new cover too.
Yeah,
the revised
cover's
one with the boys in the cave and you got little demons around them. It's pretty cool.
It makes the movie seem so much more fantastical. Like it really does.
It does, and then you watch it and you're like, "Whoa!"
It's almost like that cover reminds me of like a Del Toro film or something like that. It just comes off like.
Yeah. It does.
Definitely.
This is like a sequel to the Goonies or something.
This last one. Again, this is kind of the holy grail of finds, but Adam Chaplin.
Yeah, dude, that's fucking.
You
sick.
never find this anywhere.
No.
And I actually went to that girl. I forget her name. What's her name?
Renee.
Yeah. So I went into like her little booth and I was just skimming through and I seen Adam Chaplin. I was like, no way.
No.
Yeah.
She's got good stuff.
Yeah.
I picked up it was an anime that they redid into like CGI. It's called Appleseed, and it's like I got the steelbook. It looks freaking awesome. She highly recommended it. I haven't watched it yet, so sorry, Renee. But yeah, I have an anime backlog too, as well as everybody, because I don't know. Either they make a movie, or they'll make a series that's like 400 episodes long. There's still in between. Unless it's like Full Metal Alchemist or something, or Death Note.
Yeah, we all have that like almost that extra backlog of stuff we got to check out. Not just like horror, but for me, it's like it's like I was just talking to Corey a little bit pregame. I got like spaghetti westerns I've been super into and just watching like nonstop. So it's like I have a bunch of stuff that I still need to check out, like in my backlog for that. And then Corey was just telling me about Massacre Time, so I'm like, oh yeah, that's another one I want to check out because that's a full feature, and that's one I haven't seen. So he's like, oh yeah, dude, I'll let you borrow it. I'm like, hell yeah, dude, that's awesome. Yeah, I think we all have that, like not just horror, but like other other genres of stuff that we've just been meaning to watch and just haven't got to.
Yeah, I got a lot of movies like that. Like, I'm confessing right here, I've never seen Reservoir Dogs.
Ooh,
and I always wanted to. I bought a copy. Yeah, I think you were with me. I bought a copy. It was an artisan release for $1. Great condition. It's got the double disc, the nice sturdy case. So it's over there on my shelf now, just ready for me to watch it.
That's so funny, man. You got to check it out because I just watched the movie. Well, I've seen this movie plenty of times. I love it. But a movie called Django, spaghetti western made in the 60s. Quentin Tarantino actually used the scene from that movie in Reservoir Dogs. So just to pay homage. Yeah, just so when you say
he also redid it.
Yeah, he did.
And I saw that version. That movie was fucking awesome. So I really want to go back and watch the old one too.
The original Django was fucking amazing for its time when it came out. This came out in '66, man. It is way ahead of its time.
Didn't you get a Criterion release?
I had the spaghetti western box set from Blue Underground. So
it got released somebody. So
Arrow put out a gorgeous release of it, like in a box set. Looks amazing.
Nice.
But yeah, that's funny you mentioned that. I'm like, damn, he just like paid homage to that movie in a scene in Reservoir Dogs. That's how early in his career I mean, Tarantino's a huge fan of movies and especially Italian films. Yeah. He does that a lot in his films. But I noticed that this time I was like, that movie's for the time it came out, it's pretty violent, man. It's got a lot of great violence in it. So and never a movie felt so muddy. Like they're caked in mud. They're stepping like the town they're in. It's just they're steeped in mud and stuff like that. It's really crazy. That had to have been a hell of a set to shoot all that, but good film. Highly recommend that.
I wonder if there's a story behind that. Like people complaining about how muddy it was.
It was like they were like caked with mud. And there's a scene where like these they're in like a brothel. And these ladies get into like a fight and they're just rolling around in mud and stuff like that. But it's not like extra like erotic or anything like that. They're just like brawling in mud. It's hilarious.
So they were caked with cake.
Yeah, they were caked. They were covered head to toe. It was gross. I'm like, man, that movie is like the muddiest movie I've ever seen.
Dang.
Yeah, it's great though. It's so fun, so much fun.
Heck yeah.
Oh yeah. But yeah, that's it for my buys for the week.
Awesome. Do you have room on your shelf for them?
No, I do not. I literally have stuff going into boxes now because I don't have room. So I'm gonna have to make room soon.
Yeah, I was telling Corey for the longest time, like, you need to bring your other collection out here because his collection was kind of split up because he had the shelf in his room. I was like, you need to bring your other collection out here, and I wildly misunderstood. What's the word? I had a stroke. No, like he had way more movies than I thought he did because I came over and yes, that's the word. And I look and it's like movies stacked on top of each other, and I know that drives me crazy.
It is.
Yeah.
It
drives me crazy.
Nothing's organized right now, and I'm kind of OCD when it comes to my collection. So
I realize most collectors are, man. Most collectors have that little OCD in them where they have to have it a certain way in a certain order. If it's not in order and if it's just loose and nothing's organized, it drives them crazy. I mean, I know it does to me. I feel the same way. So.
Yeah. I tried for like the longest time sticking to, I think at one point in time I took everything off the shelf and I put everything up by production companies, and that fucked with me badly.
It will.
Yeah, because then I had the first movie in like Anchor Bay. The second movie was done by like, some other company, and it's like, fuck, this isn't gonna work.
It's tough.
Yeah.
That's like when I tried to group. I used to do all my stuff right now is in alphabetical order, which drives me crazy because you have to constantly move movies down to make room. And there was a time where I had like an Arnold collection. I was just buying all Arnold movies, and it would drive me crazy when you'd run into like I put Predator in there and Predator 2 with Danny Glover. Like I got to keep the sequels together, but it's like completely different actors, and that drove me crazy.
The only time I keep the sequels together is like my franchises. So like if I've got, which I don't think I think I got rid of all my Friday the 13th DVDs because I got the box set. But before, I had all the Friday the 13th together, including, Freddy versus Jason and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean like you would have all the Friday the 13th and Jason Goes to Hell down in the J's. That's not going to work for me.
Yeah, that would suck.
Yeah.
hate when that happens.
Yeah. But I kept them together. But yeah. Okay.
Tony, you watched the most movies out of all three of us. You could go first. How about that?
Yeah, that's fine, man. I can do that.
Okay.
I'm ready to go.
The gods have chosen you, Tony.
Okay, I'm ready to roll. Sure, yep. Here we go. Okay. So the movie I chose to do the feature review on or talk about is a movie from 1980. It's a little Canadian slasher film, made from the Canadian tax shelter, thing they used to do back in the 80s. Used to get them a tax break or whatever by doing these little films that were very, very popular at the time because of, of course, Halloween and stuff like that coming out and just dominating the from 79 to 80, especially 79 to 81 is just, that was the heyday. But it's a movie called Terror Train. Yeah.
Nice.
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Of course, with the Scream Queen herself, Jamie Lee Curtis.
Have you seen this movie before?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
I have. It had been, I want to say, like a couple of years though since I've seen it, so I wanted to go back and revisit it. But of course, the main sell of this movie is Jamie Lee Curtis. At that time, she was already shooting. I believe she shot Prom Night before this movie, and then after that, or maybe before that, she was shooting in that year span. She shot The Fog, Prom Night, and Terror Train. So she was really busy at that time. And then she went straight into Halloween 2 and Road Games. And so she was like super busy at this time and just traveling everywhere to shoot these movies because she shot this in Canada in the freezing cold. And then she went to Australia to shoot Road Games. So she was probably burnt out at the time. Like after 81, she was probably done. She had nothing to do with the genre anymore. But she is, of course, the main sell of this movie. And basically the premise is you have these medical students that are having like a frat house party or some sort of party get together, and they want to play a trick or a prank on one of the newer students. That it's a trope. You get it a lot in slasher films. You're gonna get a lot of stuff going on. With especially the stuff that I'm reviewing because I review a lot of I like to talk about a lot of stuff from that time period. But basically, they want to pull a prank on him. And so they get Jamie Lee Curtis's character. Her name's Elena in this movie. They get her to like go along with it, even though she's not really 100% sure on what they're gonna do. So basically, they coerce her to like get this guy up in this room to kind of trick him into thinking he's going to get some action. But basically, she's beside the bed, and they're medical students, so I don't know how, but spoiler alert, one of them got access to a cadaver, and they put a cadaver in the bed, So when yeah, it's a pretty fucked up prank, man, honestly. So when the guy got undressed and he laid next to the body and he was going to start making his move, he noticed that the body fell backwards and the arms just came completely off and it was just falling apart. And he flipped out and just lost his mind, went to a psychiatric, hospital right after because it just broke him mentally. And, years later, they're starting to graduate. So they have a party on this train set up by the lead bad guy or the lead bully, so to speak. His character's name is Doc, which he was played by the guy from this was really cool. He's played by the guy, his name is Hart Bachner, who plays I can't remember the character's name, but the guy in Die Hard, the real scummy, sleazy bastard that kind of like fucks Bruce Willis over, and then he ends up getting fucked over. Yeah. He's in Die Hard and stuff.
The one that tried to like befriend the terrorist and ended up getting killed. Yeah,
it was great. But he plays basically the same scummy bastard in this movie, so he's really good at playing that character. But he set up the party and everything like that on the train. So this senior class is going on this train and they're going to party, have fun. And it's cool. You get David Copperfield in this movie, which is really weird. And he's doing his live show too. He's doing tricks and doing like a performance to kind of entertain the party guests and everything. So this movie is like half a slasher film, half like a David Copperfield magic show. It's weird. But so basically we find out that, hey, there's a killer on board as well. And he's picking off, or he or she is picking off the perpetrators of that said joke that went awry. But the cool thing about this movie is the killer, well, I didn't specify this, but it's a costume party. So they're dressed up in costumes. The killer actually kills one of the victims and then puts on their costume. So throughout the movie, he's constantly changing his costume, which is really neat. I love that premise. I think that's really cool. But I think the best thing about this movie, because it suffers from, honestly, from the time slashers, a lot of the not dull ones, but for some reason they would start off really, really strong. And then in the middle, they would kind of tail off and the pacing would be kind of slower and it'd be an issue. And then it would ramp up. It would ramp up in like the last 20 minutes to the climax of the movie. It would ramp up a little bit.
Act 2 is always a mess.
Yeah, this movie suffers from that. It suffers from a really slow, tedious second act. And it that's one of my main knocks on the movie, honestly. But the best thing about this movie, I think, is the cinematography. It's fantastic. The fact that they were able to light these scenes on this train, and it's in a really cramped space, it's really, really small. It's to me, the lighting and stuff like that is what sells it for me. It really builds up the atmosphere. It makes it really, really enjoyable. I like Jamie Lee Curtis's character. Obviously, she even does a couple of like, I swear to God, man, it's like the same scream from Halloween. She does that a couple of times, the same exact scream. It's crazy. It's like they sampled it from Halloween. I don't know. But it sounded exactly the same. I do like this movie. Based on the premise, I love horror films that take place on trains. Like Horror Express is one of my favorite horror films ever because of the setting. I love the train setting. I love the atmosphere, the moody, murky atmosphere of that. This movie kind of has that as well, but it's very, very slow in the middle. And I wish it wasn't, man, because this movie would be up there as one of the best if it wasn't. If they had kept the pace going a little bit quicker. Another thing that really bogs the movie down is a lot of kills happen off screen, unfortunately. You don't get a lot of gore. And it's really, really a shame because, the premise, the killer's cool because he keeps switching costumes. Unfortunately, you just don't see you don't have a lot of blood. You don't have a lot of like gory set pieces. And really, really, standout kills almost. You get of course, you get one kill that's pretty cool where like the guy stabbed and it's completely through his body, so you can see the blade coming out of his chest and everything like that, and that's pretty cool. Then he falls into the train tracks, and then he gets run over by the train, so it's really brutal. But other than that, you don't get a lot of like gory kills, man. It's kind of tame. They were going for more of a when they were shooting this, it felt like they were going for more of a classy horror film where it wasn't so sleazy and gory and that stigma that slasher films have. But like I said, the main thing, the cinematography is gorgeous, man. It's really well done. And
they had a Scream Factory release of this?
They did. Yes, and I
don't think I've ever seen it. Like, I'm looking at it now on IMDb. I've never seen it like on Amazon or nothing.
Well, I think it's out of print because it's an older release. I think it's one of their first line of releases that came out.
Yeah.
It's first, so it's an older release. So it's probably highly out of print now.
Yeah, 88 Films did a release too.
They did. I think it's part of their slasher line that they did. But man, like I said, if it had shown more on-screen kills, if the second half or the middle part of the film, if it was a little bit more, that was the big pacing issue for me. Is it kind of just it got a little slower in the middle, and I really wish it didn't. I really wish it would have kept the tension that it built up in the beginning when they were getting on the train, and then when they got on the train, it just completely slowed down. And you were getting a lot of character, there's a lot of like character development where, Jamie Lee Curtis's character she's not pleased with Doc's character because of what he did. And when she finds out that he's the one that set it all up and not her boyfriend who claimed that he set it all up, she gets pissed off and runs off. And then there's a big infight that goes, and a lot of that stuff like that, a lot of drama and everything that kind of happens, which adds to the pacing issues. It just kind of slowed down completely. But you get Ben Johnson in this, who at the time he was a big star in Western films, and he was a stunt double for a lot of like John Wayne stuff, I think. And he was, like I said, he has that voice where he was made for Westerns, man. He sounds like a guy that you could put in any Western film, and he just molds to that character so well because he's got that voice, that unique voice. But he plays the head conductor, and he's kind of like our investigative kind of character that's trying to figure out what's going on. At first, he finds a body. He's like, oh shit, like somebody's dead. We got to stop the train. We got to do this. And then he goes back with another one of his conductors to go check on the body. And sure enough, the killer's in. He switched up the outfit, and now he's in it. So now it just looks like a drunk guy, like they were playing a joke. So he's constantly confused, like what's going on? These young kids are playing jokes. I don't know what's going on. You get a lot of that in the middle of the movie too. But like I said, the end, really, I love the ending. The ending was great. The guy that played the killer, well, like I said, spoiler alert, if no one's seen Terror Train, I don't want to, I want you to check it out, even though my rating's not going to be as high, but still check it out. It's fun. It's, 80s slasher. You gotta see it. But the guy that played the killer was not a trained actor. So he really didn't have, any experience in acting at all or in movie roles, but they just picked him out, and he played a really creepy bastard, man. He really did. There's the end with him and Jamie, and they're almost like, having a dialogue scene together, and he's just really off-putting and creepy, and he does a fantastic job of doing it. I know him and the director had problems because he wasn't as classically trained as a lot of, of course, Ben Johnson and Jamie Lee Curtis, they've done roles before and they've been in movies, and he wasn't, so they kind of butted heads, from what I understand in the production aspect of it. So I think he did a fantastic job, though. He really was creepy. It's funny how who the killer is going to be, but you don't expect him to be who it is. It's hard to explain without spoiling it completely. Basically, the whole time he is there because he is the assistant to David Copperfield, because David Copperfield is supposed to be the red herring that everybody thinks he's the killer, but it's not. It's the assistant who is a guy but dresses like a chick, and it's really weird. So, yeah, it's kind of like, oh shit, like that's crazy. But like I said, it's one of those movies I don't revisit often because of it's one of those slower slasher flicks, man. It really is, and I hate it. I wish it was more ramped up. It would be so much better if it was. It would go from my rating, which is going to be a 3-star rating, to a 4 easily if it would just have a little bit more on-screen kills. If the pacing was better, the acting's great. It feels solid. You know, everybody in the cast is great. So, like I said, those are the main drawbacks of it. If it wasn't for that, it would be up there as a really enjoyable and like a heavy rotation slasher film for me in particular. But, you know, unfortunately, it's one of those run-of-the-mill ones that came out at that time. So even with Jamie Lee Curtis in it, I'd still have to give it a 3 stars.
Okay.
So
awesome.
Oh, and at the end too, there's a dummy death that's hilarious.
Yes.
I love seeing that. Dummy deaths are great.
Dummy deaths are amazing.
So,
Nice.
I guess we can wait till later to do the honorable mentions. Maybe we take turns, kind of do like a round table, because I know you got a lot of them. I got a few.
yeah, I got a few, but I'm not going to dwell on them too much. I'm just going to.
Okay. Sounds good. So Terror Train, yeah, I'm intrigued. I like to check it out.
Great
It's
title.
a fun watch.
Title, and it's got a great tagline too. It says, "All the boys and girls of Sigma Pi, some will live and some will die." Simple. It's a great tagline.
That's cool.
I like
Most
that.
taglines from that time were bad. That's actually really good.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's solid.
Yeah,
Nice.
definitely. So, Corey, what you got, man?
All right, so yeah, I stuck with 1980 as well. A little film that's it's been years since I've watched it, so it wasn't fresh in my mind when I watched it.
Okay.
Picked it up a few years back at a convention. This is a film that I had been seeking out for quite some time, but He Knows You're Alone.
Nice, dude.
Tom Hanks's first film.
Very
Oh
cool.
wow. Okay.
Yes. So, and it's funny because it's a selling point, right? Well, they don't actually sell it as Tom Hanks's first film, or at least I haven't seen that. But he plays in like 2 or 3 scenes in this film. That is it. Like, very small role for him.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's just him being a fresh young kid. And you can see where his acting skills has definitely improved over the years. So, that's different, because it's you expect some. I going into this film, I was expecting at least like Tom Hanks's, where he was like in the movie Big. I was expecting like that Tom Hanks, but this is like fresh off the streets Tom Hanks, like young in his prime. But with that,
Or became a millionaire and one of the most recognizable actors ever.
yeah.
I love going back and seeing that. It's like it's really mind blowing to go back. It's almost like going back in a time, like a time machine. It's like,
and that's the thing. That's the thing with horror, because people don't realize it, but a lot of actors, big name actors these days, they started out playing very small roles. Case in point, 3 scenes, and that was it for him in this film.
yeah.
But I'll just jump straight into the storyline a little bit. So the storyline follows. Well, you meet a killer relatively quickly in this film by the name of Ray, which sadly this is the only film that he's ever been in as far as the actor himself. But he follows so Ray's motive on his killing sprees is that he kills engaged women, like women that are gonna get married, but they're not married yet, obviously. And it goes back to later on you find out why he does it. But he follows a young woman by the name of Amy, who's going to be marrying a gentleman by the name of Phil, which right away you kind of, it's almost kind of like you meet Phil and realize that he's a scumbag, and she's having her doubts about meeting him or marrying him. But there's this guy that obviously she should be marrying. His name is Marvin, and he's this funny best friend. I think they were maybe a couple at one time, and then they
yeah, but his name's Marvin.
And he's a mortician.
Yeah, he's a mortician.
Marvin the mortician. Oh,
Marvin the mortician, yeah. And he's funny. He's your funny, kooky character. I love Marvin in the film. That was probably my favorite part of the film.
Good.
I noticed right away, and Tony, maybe you can back me up because I don't think Daniel, you haven't seen this film.
No.
I'm not going to spoil too much then. And again, for any audience listeners that haven't seen this movie, I'm not going to spoil too much. But Tony, maybe you can elaborate a little bit more. But the first thing that I noticed was the runtime for me isn't too bad. It's an hour and a half long. Mm-hmm. However, I felt that the film was quite draggy through a lot of scenes that I felt that just didn't need to be there. They were unnecessary to the film.
I'm glad you bring that up because that's kind of how I felt with The Prowler.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's exactly what Terror Train. That's like a thing with like these early slasher films, man. They drag in the middle a lot of the times.
Yeah, as a Prowler, that was the example. Like, I couldn't think of it at first, but then I was going back through my Letterboxd reviews and remembered that I watched The Prowler, and that movie came to mind when you were talking about Terror Train and how like it starts off strong and then it just drags. And there's a lot of scenes where you're like tapping your watch, like, you know, let's go, let's move this along. You know, you're boring me basically, and I don't want that because the premise of that movie was awesome.
Oh yeah,
there's just some scenes that bored me. That's all.
Right.
That's case in point with me. I love The Prowler, and the reason I love The Prowler and Terror Train's not there for me is because at least The Prowler has a cool killer. It has gore, and it has like all the stuff that you want in a slasher film. Unfortunately, Terror Train didn't have it. They didn't have the great on-screen kills. I mean, they didn't have a Tom Savini, let's face it. So, you know, that's one thing The Prowler had going in his favor. But it's still, atmosphere is very important with these films as well. If you don't have that and you don't sell that, then that's what kind of critique your, you know, it kind of bring down your movie a little bit. But yeah, I agree, man. Like I said, and He Knows You're Alone is another example of that. Came out in 80. Like that was just, I guess it was like these studios trying to sell like a more classy film than a slasher film. But us slasher fans, like, dude, we want slasher movies. We want to see what they're known for. That's what we're looking for. So if they don't get it,
I get where they were coming from because there's also you're also following a cop trying to solve this murder mystery as well throughout this film, and then he ties into Ray's character towards the end. And I don't want to spoil that again for you, Daniel, or any of the audience listeners. But it's a cool concept, and the storyline is neat for what it is. But I just felt that it was too draggy. Now, my other beef with this film, and here's the thing: when I bought this film and I sat down and I watched it, this is probably a second time watch for me, so it's relatively fresh. I enjoyed it when I first originally watched it, but it seems like when I went in to critique it, I noticed a lot of things that I didn't care for. For instance, and just hear me out, maybe you can elaborate a little bit on this. It reminded me a lot of Halloween. And what I mean by that is there's a car scene towards the end where Amy's trying to make her get away from Ray, and she's in a station wagon. And all of a sudden, Ray is on top of the car. He slaps the window, breaking the window, and grabs her. Okay, that scene happened in Halloween. We saw Michael Myers do that with a nurse. So right there, I was like, I was like, wow. You know, and the thing is Halloween came out 2 years prior to this film. So, you know, that already was in my head. The other thing that pointed me towards Halloween was the character Nancy. She reminded me a lot of Annie. Could you see that, Tony?
Now that you say something, yeah, I could definitely see that.
Yeah.
I didn't make the connection when I watched it, but now that you said something, okay,
it's almost kind of like Amy is kind of like Laurie Strode. She's very quiet. She's very
reserved,
shy, and then you have the loudmouth of the group, Annie, and this is Nancy. I mean, it's just very similar. And I was like, wow, this is just too much. Like,
it just goes to show you how influential Halloween was to what would become the slasher boom. Like, I have so many in my collection that rip off scenes from Halloween exactly. Mm-hmm. Like, not even being subtle about it. Like, they're just going for it because they saw what was popular and what made money, and so they're trying to go for the same formula. And in a lot of ways, they're ripping it off completely and not making any qualms about it. Like, they're just doing it blatantly. So that happens, man. I see it all the time. I see how influential that film was, man. It's mind blowing.
Yeah, I mean, I clearly saw that.
Yeah,
in this film, I did write down in my notes that the gore was okay. I wanted more, but for 1980, again, it was trying to stay at a classier trope, like what you said.
Yeah.
It was. I put in there. It was a bit tame for 1980. The ending, of course, I love the ending. It was neat and creative. Like you said, once you get the full story, and that's the thing. I didn't actually realize what they were going for there, but in the end, you see her marrying Marvin, and right before, Phil shows up, and it's like a continuous cycle. So it's like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool how they did that.
It's interesting that we keep bringing up the term classy slasher, and I was just sitting there thinking, like, how it's, over time, like how movies have evolved, people, and they kind of had to, because people were starting to get desensitized to it, like, you want to really scare someone, then you gotta film your movie right, and like there were some movies even back then and during that time, like I think of movies like The Exorcist. That movie was genuinely terrifying. Like, there were scenes in that movie that just, if you're gonna go for a classier slasher, so to speak, then you really should find ways. This is just my opinion. You should find ways to, like, still make the hairs on your neck stand up. You know what I mean? And I think of, like, Black Christmas. Like, that was a classy slasher.
Perfect.
And it really, like the scene where she sees his eyes through the door, stuff like that. Like, it still scares you. You know what I mean? The thought of this guy in the house the whole time, these dead bodies in the attic, and they are completely unaware. It's just, it's awesome. I don't know. Some of the slashers that I feel like, they're what I would call cash-ins, because there's people capitalizing on the idea of the slasher to make money because they see the popularity of Halloween, but they just don't know what they're doing with it. You know what I mean? And they could be great directors. Like I was looking through the IMDb of the director for Terror Train. I mean, this guy wrote 48 Hours. He directed The Sixth Day. He directed
Turner and Hoops, man.
Did he?
He did.
Yeah. Oh man, I love that movie. He directed 007, Tomorrow Never Dies. Yeah, Tom Hanks. So he's a good director, but maybe he didn't know what he was doing with horror so much. You know what I mean?
Didn't know he was that element, and that's a lot of the problems when you get like a producer and like a director who's disconnected from the genre and they don't know how to handle it.
Yeah,
like, it can be like very average, and it wouldn't make its mark on slasher films. And it sounds like for me and Corey, we have the exact same critiques in both of our movies, like with P almost. And it's funny because they came out at the same time, and I don't know what the proximity was. I know Terror Train was shot in '79, and I'm sure that He Knows You're Alone was shot in '79 as well, and then came out in '80. And we know Friday the 13th was shot around '79 as well. So maybe they missed the mark on what was going to be what was going to be a sell for slasher films. With it being the gore effects, man, the gore is going to sell it because Friday the 13th has legendary gore effects, and it's remembered today, and it's a landmark in the genre. So I just think it's a missed opportunity, bad timing. I think
it's different. You know, we go through different phases, you know, each decade, and then it was definitely the horror, the slashers. You know, that's why 80 and 81, especially 81, is considered like the golden for slashers. Yeah. We're kind of in a place now. I think we're finally kind of getting out of it, but for a while, like the last decade, it's all about superhero movies, like just one after a fucking another. And there's been a lot of duds, but a lot of good ones. You know, really capitalize on it, and it's making them billions of dollars. Like, why stop? You know. But, you know, I'm wondering, like, what the next phase is going to be. There was even if you remember, like, there was even a phase, I'd say late 90s to 2010-ish, maybe, where it was all about books to movies. You know, we were getting Harry Potters, we were getting Lord of the Rings, you know, which that's always been a thing, you know, making movies out of books. But it's interesting to see that, you know, that evolution of movies and what's popular, you know, and they were definitely cashing in on the horror genre, specifically slashers, and it shows, you know. That's why there's so many of them. But
absolutely, man.
But yeah, overall with this film, it was a fun film, just some minor flaws. One of my major flaw was he killed a guy with a cigar.
Oh man!
Not literally killed him with the cigar, but the guy that was smoking a cigar died in the film. So.
Oh yeah. Hit you in
and
a different way.
Hit you. You saw that and you were like, "That could be me. That could be me."
The funny thing about He Knows You're Alone is there's a scene in the beginning of that movie that Scream 2 rips off completely. And it's the scene in the theater, and you know what I'm talking about. Like, it almost beat for beat rips that completely off. Like, so you can tell, you know, that was, you know, Scream, of course, is a meta, you know, franchise, and they wear their influences on their sleeve, no doubt. So, you know, that was purposeful. Like, they did that on purpose.
Yeah.
But it's funny if you go back and watch He Knows You're Alone and then watch Scream 2 right afterwards. It's like, oh my God, they did the exact same thing.
and I want to bring up whoever I didn't see who directed this film. One of the things that I really liked is that opening scene. So you follow this young woman, and this is where you meet. Well, you don't meet Ray right away, but she goes to the bathroom. She gets uneasy because she's in the bathroom alone, and she feels like somebody's in there, and she peeks through the crack of the stall. Now, I had to rewind it because I was like, did I just see something cool? And if you look closely, it's almost like the camera focuses in on the outside of the stall, in on her eyeball, and you can see the silhouette of a man standing there on the other side of the stall. And I thought that was so cool.
That's cool, man. That's
nice. Because that was a nice little touch. And I was like, this really good eye detail, you know, right there.
Yeah.
And then obviously she gets spooked, goes back and gets murdered in a scene in the movie theater. So, that was a cool kill scene. Let's face it. Because he waited for like everyone to have a reaction, you know, so everyone was going to scream. And as soon as everyone screamed, he jabbed a knife in the back of the seat, the movie theater seat, and it went into her heart.
Yeah, and killed her. So the audience wouldn't have known any better because everyone's screaming at the screen because of the movie that they're watching. So it's cool.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But overall, I gave it 3.5, and I'm quite satisfied with that. It's low, but it's not as high, just because I thought it could have been better.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
That's fair. Good score.
That, and I want to say Tom Hanks. Oh, sorry, Daniel. There's a scene where Tom Hanks, he does walk up and he's like, he's like, yeah, I want to buy you a stuffed animal. He's on a date with a girl, and he's like, I want to buy you a stuffed animal. And then she's like, okay. And he's like, do you have $5? so then he pays for it, and then he's like, I know you would want this, and he hands it to her. He goes, I wanted to give that to you. Here's your change.
I'm gonna tell you, Tom Hanks, his dialogue in the movie is some of my favorite. Like that's some of my favorite stuff in the movie. Like he is so funny. You could tell this guy was going to be a star. Just that little quick, little short amount of time he was in the movie, he was one of the big things about the movie. Was just his little scenes in particular, because his dialogue, he gets on a tear about, I think it was random violence and stuff like that. It's so, man, it's so good. It's amazing. Yeah. And he's doing it all while they're waiting in a line in a carnival, and I think it's just fantastic.
Yeah. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, you could definitely tell this guy was going to be a star. Like, there's some of those times where you're like, okay, this guy is destined for greatness. I mean,
and it makes me want to watch The Burbs.
This is one of my favorite pieces of trivia about He Knows You're Alone, is that they were originally going to kill off Tom Hanks' character. But because he made such an impression on the producer, and then they saw the dailies with him and his acting, they're like, oh, this guy's too likable. We can't kill him off. So they rewrote it to where his character does not get killed. Because he is so cool, and he's such a nice guy. So,
wow.
Yeah, I thought that was really neat.
That's cool. I didn't know that. That's awesome.
So, Tony, what does my movie start with? You said you think you know what.
I know what it is.
It is? Well, what's it start with?
It starts with an H.
Oh, you got me.
Oh, yes.
I knew it.
Awesome.
I finally got around to watching Hatchet.
So cool. Oh, I can't wait to hear your thoughts on that.
Oh, man. So it was last night. I have a copy of the movie, but it was on Tubi, and I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to watch this movie finally, because I've been putting it off for too long. Picked it up a while back. I picked up, actually, part 1 and 2 the same day. I need to go pick the other ones up. I had never got a chance to watch it. David was actually asking me if I'd seen Victor Crowley, and I was like, no, haven't seen Victor Crowley. But I said I did just buy the first 2 sequels, and he's like, there's more. I was like, yeah, Victor Crowley's based on the whole series. And I told him the whole spiel about how Adam Green he made the first one, and then fans demanded to make sequels, and so he went and made the sequels. And I can't wait to visit him, man, because I'm telling you, this movie was so much fun.
Yeah,
some of the funniest dialogue in a movie in a while. The chemistry between the characters was great. Especially whenever you hit Act 2, they were just they fed off of each other really well. Their fear was just completely overtaking them at this point, and they were just sometimes being downright irrational. One of the characters, the dumb bimbo blonde, she's like, I'm gonna call the cops so they'll send the police. She's like, those are the same thing. She's like, no, they're not. Just stuff like that. There were a few cameos in the movie, which was amazing. You had a Robert Englund right off the bat, right in the beginning of the movie. He was the old disgruntled dad, the fisherman. It's so funny. Just talking trash to his son. Why can't you be more like your sister?
Oh my God.
And yes, that was great. I totally didn't I didn't see it coming where the dad or the 2 fishermen in the beginning would actually play an important role, being the father and brother of one of our final girls. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, so basic premise, if you haven't seen this movie, there's a group of tourists. They're in New Orleans during, I guess it would be Mardi Gras, and which is right off the bat, just a really cool, I want to say, unique premise. I can't really think of any other movies that take place in a swamp, let alone, the bayou and the during Mardi Gras. So that was cool right off the bat, you know. But our main protagonist, he's sulking because he just got out of a relationship and he doesn't really feel like being there. So he drags his friend into going on to this haunted tour, which is basically ran by this scam artist who's just trying to make some money. Well, little did they know the swamp's haunted by the legendary Victor Crowley, which is, you know, it's kind of the you know, the trope we've seen before, you know, where you have this legendary character who they die tragically, but their ghost remains, or, you know, they disappear, they've never been seen again, and then they come back to kill people, that kind of thing. So
they get into his backstory, and I don't know if I can't remember if they do it all completely in the original, but they call Victor Crowley a repeater. So he keeps constantly coming back to the swamp because of the tragic events that led up to his death. So he's repeating the same, like repeating it over and over and over, and that's why he's doing what he's doing, which is really cool. The mythos and to the character and stuff like that's really, really neat.
Yeah, like he so his whole story, you know, he's played by Kane Hodder, which is cool. Yes. Young Victor Crowley is actually played by a lady by the name of Relea Vanderbilt. So I thought it was kind of cool, and she seems like she plays him like in the sequels too. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, he was born with a deformity. He's kind of a freak. His father, who Kane Hodder actually plays his father, it was like a short, little cameo there as well. But he's like, you know, he's taking care of him, and they live in the swamp, you know, in isolation, because he doesn't want to bring him into public because he knows that people are just gonna mock him and all. But he his father genuinely loves him, you know, and like cares for him. And the house gets set on fire, and his father grabs a hatchet, which is technically an axe, because hatchets only have one-sided. But for the movie's sake, it's called Hatchet, but it's double-sided. So I thought it was kind of funny. But he's banging on the, you know, he's hitting the door trying to get him out, and he accidentally hits his son in the face with the hatchet. And what he thinks kills him, well, apparently it didn't kill him. And so he roams the swamp. So basic premise there. But this movie just plays homage to, you know, just great slasher films. There's a lot of gore. There's funny lines. Everything about this movie I really love, just because, like, you know, I've been telling you, like, one thing that kind of irritates me is when you watch a slasher, and it might be kind of a corny slasher, but there's no memorable one-liners, you know? That just kills me. This movie's like, it's just chock full of them, you know? It's and they really play on the tropes, like, hard in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Definitely.
you know,
because Adam Green is a fan, and you can tell, like, this is a passion project from him. Like, he wanted to do this. Like, this was something he'd been destined to do his whole life, because he's such a big. Matter of fact, I watched his Scary Sleepover series on YouTube, and I just watched that today. So it's funny that, you know, you're talking about Hatchet and stuff like that. And I was just watching, because in his prop, you know, in his studio and stuff like that, he's got Hatchet props everywhere. He's got the poster. He's got a Victor Crowley standee, a full, like, bodied one. And it's just like, that's so cool that you watched it, and I just watched that today, his new episode, or one of his newer episodes. So yeah, I'm a huge fan, like a huge fan of slasher films. So, like, he was gonna throw tropes plenty into this.
Yeah, like, this movie is just such a fun movie, man. Like, it's got going back to the cameos, you know, of course we got Robert Englund, but we also have Tony Todd. Like, his cameo was just out of nowhere. They go to this what used to be haunted tours, and you think Tony Todd's gonna lead the tour, and he's telling this story, and he's like, I don't do those anymore. And you think that, like, something tragic happened, but it ends up he got sued, so he doesn't do them anymore. He said, "Be careful walking on the damn sidewalk." Yeah, his character was great. So I hope he comes back. I don't know. I haven't seen the sequels, but I'd love this Reverend Zombie.
Reverend Zombie.
I've seen him.
So that's great. You've got Richard Riley, I think his name is.
Mm-hmm.
But the guy that played in the Office Space. I jumped to conclusions, Matt. He was even in the movie. I did not expect to see him. That was awesome. So yeah, just a fun movie. So anyway, they find this guy, this little Asian dude that's like speaking like heavy Bayou talk, heavy New Orleans, like Cajun.
Yeah, his characters, his kid. Oh my god, dude!
I was laughing so hard because like, so his name's Sean in the movie, played by Perry Shin, but he was so funny because he was a con artist through and through. Because like, not only was he conning them through this haunted boat tour, that was like super cheesy, because like he even had like little flashcards he's pulling out and reading the story, and they're like, that's not how the story goes. He's like, oh sure it is, yeah. And so he was laying in it thick, and then you find out later that like that's not his real accent, like he's faking it sometimes. And I love it like whenever something like shit hits the fan and something bad happens, he starts like yelling in Mandarin.
So good. He's like, no, man, I'm from Detroit.
From Detroit. Yeah. He's like, they're carrying the dude because Richard Riley's character, Jim, he ended up getting hurt. So they're like carrying him. He's like, ain't this something? The two brothers carrying the wounded guy in the front. And the black guy looks at him like, what? Yeah, so that was great. But yeah, I mean, it's just such a fun movie. Like they of course the boat crashes and they get stuck in the swamp, and now they're like fighting for survival from Victor Crowley, who's just hunting them down one by one. Mm-hmm. So from like the middle of Act 2 to like Act 3, like it is a survival. Like they are trying to survive, and this is the part where like, the gloves are off. The killer is just finding them and just taking them out. In
the most brutal fashion too.
Most brutal fashion. Yeah, they didn't hold back in this movie, and that's what I absolutely love. Like, there's a scene where he gets his hands on like just the little the old innocent lady, just grabs her head and rips it open. You can see her tongue flapping around.
And just rip. Oh man, it's so brutal.
I think my favorite kill is got to be when he takes the saw to that chick's face, and then like as she's walking away with her like jaw hanging off, he has a shovel in the ground where he just shoveled off that dude's head, and he picks her up off the ground and just slams her into the handle of the shovel. Yeah, like he is a monster. Like he does not hold back.
You can tell Kane had fun with his role.
Oh, Kane was having a blast, dude.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I always say that he was getting out aggression and stuff for not being cast in Freddy versus Jason. He was getting out all that aggression in this movie with how pissed off he was that he wasn't able to play Jason in that. So he was just letting loose and going to town in this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So I never knew that Joel David Moore was in this movie. So that was interesting. He's our main character, like our main protagonist. And of course, that's the guy playing dodgeball as the dude that didn't know that they had a pirate in the group.
He was also Robot Man and Grandma's Boy, which is one of my favorites.
Yes. Yeah.
Sit on my face.
I'm thinking of getting robot legs. It's a risky operation, but it'll be worth it. Golly. Yeah, he's great. He's great in this movie. So, but yeah, I mean, you have your one thing that really stood out is the diverse cast. You had Joel David Moore. You had your token, I guess, bimbos, which they were like kind of on the trip because they got roped in by Doug Shapiro was his name. He was Spike Beavers. He's like this sleazy photographer who like he'd make chicks believe are getting casted in movie roles, but then like just use their photography for his own ill-gotten gain, whether it be for his own pleasure or for profit. And Of course, they didn't find out about that till like I guess after he died, pretty much. You know, and then you have the I guess would be the token Asian, which you don't see that often, but his character was fantastic. You know, the old unsuspecting couple, you know, it just had such a diverse cast. Yeah, they're fun, you know, it was a fun cast. And you know, one thing I really like that they did in this movie though is they fought back. That's one thing that you don't, I mean, you see it, you know, but it was like it's usually like one character is like, okay, I'm the last character, I have to make a stand, you know, kind of deal. With this one, they were kind of like collectively trying to see what they could do to stop them. And at that moment, it kind of reminded me of like a creature feature, you know, where like people, you know, usually in slashers, it's like the slasher kills everybody, but there's like one or two people left that are like fighting back. And creature features is usually when you see like the group, you know, mentality where they're getting together to like, you take the monster out. This movie kind of reminded me of like both in a way, you know, because Victor Crowley's almost inhuman, you know.
Yeah.
So
as you watch like more and more of the sequels and stuff when they come out, you'll find out how just absolutely fucking inhuman and crazy he is, man.
Yeah, I can't wait.
It gets so much more crazy, believe it or not.
Can you see her?
Yeah.
Just pretend like she's not there.
Yeah, I actually turned Tony on to Hatchet, and that's what you know. He was looking for a slasher film at the time, and
never forget that, man. Never forget that.
And yeah, it was, dude. He wanted something that, you know, kind of reminded of like 80s slasher style, and this film delivered on that. I mean, right in the opening scene when I first like saw the film, and you know, I think he kills Robert Englund off camera, and like you just see like the bucket of like it almost seemed like they took like a whole bucket of fake blood and just splashed it on a tree. I was like, oh man, I knew what I was in for with this film.
Oh yeah, definitely. When the other dude like rips his legs off and then like throws his body, like I'll tell you one of the brutal kills is his friend Marcus.
Yeah,
like Marcus gets it bad. He's like rips his arms off and then grabs his legs and slings him into a tombstone, and his head just explodes. It was insane. So
the gore,
definitely,
the gore is just fucking insane in this movie, dude.
Yeah, the gore is insane. And
it gets more and more as it progresses. So when you see the sequel and stuff, it just gets more and more intense.
It's crazy, man. There's some kills in it, like, whoa, man, that's fucking gnarly that they were able to like actually shoot that and do that. That's fucking awesome. Yeah, there was plenty of times I was thoroughly impressed by what I was seeing with the kills and the sequels and of course in this one too. That's how I knew I loved it. You know, when you recommended it to me and you're like, man, you got to check this, dude. You got to check this out, dude. It's fucking nuts. And I was like, oh, you got me sold, man. Then I saw the kills and I'm like, yep. Now I know what he was talking about. Shit for me. And this is exactly what I was looking for.
Yep. I kind of don't want to spoil the ending just because, you know, for those who haven't seen it, go watch Hatchet. It's awesome. Like, don't ignore reviews because, you know, of course, that's why you're here. You want to hear our opinion. A lot of the reviews I was looking up on this movie, you know, they're trashing it because it's an indie film. But I mean, it's good. It's really good. Yeah, it's a fun one. But so yeah, with that being said, I've given Hatchet 4-star. So definitely recommend. Definitely recommend. And that could change, you know, like if I ever come back and revisit the movie, you know, once I've seen the sequels, could be a higher rating, but for now, 4. I'm sticking with 4. I think that's a good rating for the movie. You know, there were a couple scenes, you know, I feel like were a little over cheesy, but you know, like the scene where they were standing in front of the bush and they kept trying to get Marcus to look in the bush to see what was in there. It was a raccoon, you know. And as soon as he points, shines a light, he's like, "Man, ain't nothing but a raccoon." And then, like, out of nowhere, Victor Crowley runs up. And, you know, like stuff like that, you know. I remember there was a jump scare in the movie that kind of got me. But it was a good jump scare, you know. Like it wasn't a cat jumping out of a microwave or nothing stupid. Cat scares. But, so yeah, good movie. Definitely recommend. So,
Oh yeah,
That's awesome, man.
so now we go to honorable mentions. I guess we can do kind of a roundtable here. Corey, you said you didn't have any this week.
yeah. I kind of slacked a little. I didn't watch any this week, other than my main review.
I mean, that's perfectly fine. Tony.
Oh yeah,
I guess give me two of them, and then I'll jump to it. We'll kind of take turns here because I got a couple too.
that's no problem, man. So first up for me, I watched. I threw on a movie. I've seen this movie multiple times. I bought it, believe it or not, way back when at Family Video when they were still around, and you were able to buy movies from them, which you weren't really supposed to, but they actually let you get away with it.
Yeah.
I saw this, and the cover just intrigued the hell out of me, and I took it home, watched it. The first time I saw it, I fell in love with it. I absolutely dug the shit out of it. And I keep watching it, and still to this day, like it still holds that really special feeling to me of watching a flick and just enjoying the hell out of it. And it's a movie called Blood Junkie. And I know it was directed by the same guy that has directed one of my favorite indie slasher films that come out in the past, I don't even know, like 20 or so years, and that's Billy Club. I absolutely fucking love Billy Club, man. And this guy is 2 for 2 in my book. And a lot of it has to do with his characters. The characters in his movie are so, you get like one character in particular, you're supposed to like, he's set up to be the dick that you're not supposed to like, but he's so likable because he's the dick and he plays a dick perfectly that you just end up liking his character.
Sorry, I was scrolling down looking at the characters' names. Billy the Butt.
Oh, that scene in particular is fucking hysterical. Dude.
There's a character called Rachel's Boobs.
Oh my god, dude! This movie, I highly recommend. I don't want to really speak on it too much because I really want people to go out and seek it out and watch it because it's so much fun. It is a true 80s throwback film. It takes place in like '89, so you get that aesthetic. The only time it doesn't work is there's a scene in a convenience store where they go into a convenience store and you can see like the products and stuff on the shelf. They're newer products. They're not of the time or anything like that. But everything else, the aesthetic of the 80s in this movie is perfectly done to it. It's absolute, from the wardrobe, from the hairstyles to everything, dude. They nail it. And this guy is so talented at that. I love this movie, man. I dig the hell out of it. I gave it a 3.5 star. I don't even know why I gave it a 3. I really, realistically, should be a 4-star because I really thoroughly enjoy the hell out of this movie. It's not a below average slasher film. It's so much more. Perfect throwback film. And then I watched another movie. It's really average. It's got a cool couple things going on there. The fact of it takes a lot of inspiration from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And the movie's called Mask Maker. Basically the dude, and that's my favorite part of the movie, is the killer will kill somebody and then wear their face, you know, and it's really creepy and it's really off-putting. I say that a lot, but it really is. It's really, really just like, oh shit, you don't see that a lot. And, you know, I like the fact that they went there. It's got the dude from, I want to say it was like Laguna Beach. Remember that show? Came out in the like MTV era. It's got him in, I think it's Laguna Beach or the OC, Orange County, something like that. I remember seeing him before on some MTV show. He's the lead, one of the leads. And like I said, his acting is, and you know, for the most part, the acting is so-so, but It's pretty average, man. I gave it a 3-star. The killer's pretty creepy though, and I like the backstory to the killer and why he's doing what he's doing and killing. And I thought that was pretty neat. I don't want to spoil it too much because these are 2 newer films and not really that old. So I don't really want to spoil too much. But yeah, that's 2 for me, man. What you got? Interested in hearing what your
So okay, I watched. Let's see. Yeah, I'll start here. Sure, why not? So I watched a movie called Slaughter High. Red Letter Media did a. This was actually featured on one of their Best of the Worst. So I was like, I have to watch it, and it's on Tubi. It's got an awesome cover, like the skeleton with the cap and gown holding the apple with the. Looks like it's got a fuse, like it's gonna blow up.
yeah.
I guess that's like signifying the prank or whatever. So cool cover. It was a fun movie. Like it's super dark. The camera was super dark. I remember like that is a dark movie, you know, because they all go into this their old high school, which has been shut down for their 10-year reunion. This is 10 years after they pulled this prank on Marty Ranson, who was like the school geek, you know. Like he's just that person that everyone has it out for. Well, they go back to their high school for 10-year reunion, and then they start getting killed off one by one. And of course, it's Marty Ranson who's hunting them down, yada yada. You know, we've seen that before. There's so many slasher films with the prank trope, you know. So that's why when you mentioned it earlier, I was like, of course.
There it is.
But yeah, just an interesting group of characters. Like, you know, they're all partying, they're getting drunk. Then they randomly pull out drugs, like hard drugs, man. Like they're all smoking weed, and then out of nowhere they start doing lines of coke. Like Jesus, like this is 10-year reunion is lit.
Yeah, it's lit.
But yeah, it's just got, you know, some funny one lines and just downright, you know, something I put in my review is like just downright impossible kills.
Oh,
like
in particular, that one made no sense whatsoever, but it was so fun.
Which one?
That beer kill where the guy drunk the beer. Yeah, that made no sense at all. It made no sense at all, but it's fun.
Drunk the beer and then his stomach just explodes. What?
No explanation.
No explanation. Like he didn't like. Would he put something in a beer? Like how could he? You know?
How could he? Right?
It was a can of beer that he just opened. There was another kill where the lady's like she gets blood on her from the guy's stomach exploding, so she goes in the bathroom, strips down butt ass naked, gets in the shower, and she's showering, and the water is just. It's fine, and then all of a sudden it's battery acid, and it just melts her skin. She's like, or not even battery acid, like it's a potent acid, like it melts her body. Like how? Like it was plumbing. Like it's already plumbed in. It's just water.
I love how they have a random shower in the school.
Like yeah, that's been shut down.
Yeah. So they have running water. They have electricity, albeit shoddy electricity, because the light bulbs in this movie just randomly explode. Like, there's so many scenes in this movie where they're walking down the hallway and light bulbs are just blowing up.
Oh,
okay. There's a sewage kill.
Oh.
There's, you know, I mean, and this group is like you have the prankster, you have the whore. Basically, who's like married, has a kid with this dude, but she wants to sleep with this guy because she's incredibly attracted to jocks, apparently. So you have a range of characters in this, you know, and they're all scumbags, and they all get what's coming to them pretty much. And then this movie does that thing at the end where it's a twist, you know, and I'm gonna spoil it just because, you know. So if you don't want to hear it, skip ahead, you know, 30 seconds, whatever. But this movie does that thing at the end where it's a dream sequence, and it's Marty in the hospital right after the prank, and he's bandaged up, and he's laying there, and then, you know, the nurse is like, "Oh, you're gonna be okay," and so it was all Marty's dream. And then Marty gets up and like I think the daughter walks in and he's like, he stabs the daughter or something. So it's like, and then he starts peeling his face off. Like, he's just this weird close up where he's peeling his face off, and then it ends, goes to credits. And I'm like, what? So it's like, okay, none of that happened. It was all in Marty's head. Now Marty's going to really start the killing, you know? So it's like, okay, none of that happened, but it's going to happen. What? Why? So I don't know. It was silly movie, but I did enjoy it. I laughed, I cried, but no, I really, it wasn't a good movie. Like, I gave it 3 stars, but it was enjoyable. Like, I do recommend you at least checking it out. I mean, it's on Tubi, it's free, and there are some pretty funny things in it. So, especially at the beginning when they're pranking them, they come up with these ridiculous pranks. You know, like, one, they have a prank where they're gonna lure him into the bathroom to make him think that he's gonna get some action from one of the school hotties, and then they open up the shower and he's butt ass naked. And not only do they take pictures of him naked, but they flip him upside down and start dunking his head in the toilet.
Just being extra fucking vile to the boy, man.
Yeah,
like
they give him a laced joint, and which he tries to light, and it's like blown up in his hand. And then the final the coup de grace is when they what did they even do? I think they mixed some chemicals or something and caused the reaction and like set the lab on fire, and that's when they ended up burning them and scarring them.
Yeah, burn. Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, like, so they're just evil little sons of bitches. But
I like. It's funny that Caroline Monroe plays the really, really hot girl that he's trying to score with, the one that's luring him into the bathroom. And she was supposed to play a high school, like, she was supposed to be like high school age girl. She was like 35 or something.
30, yeah. really held her age.
I mean, she looks great, man. But still, she can't pass for a high schooler. Come on.
Yeah. There is a scene, though, where she's on the phone with her agent, and in the background is a poster of Pieces.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty cool. So I right then I was hooked. I was like, yeah, this is gonna be fun. And it was a fun movie. It was goofy, a goofy slasher. I think it's actually labeled as a horror comedy. I could be wrong.
It's got a lot.
It's horror thriller, but it's it's one of those things where it's super goofy and you definitely can't take it seriously, but it's definitely worth checking out. So
I agree.
Back to you. What you got?
Oh man, this one I'm really excited to talk about. So, this is another flick. Scream Factory released it, and it's actually done by Scream Factory too. It's one of their own original films, and it's a movie called Fender Bender. And it's one of those movies that when it came out, it's a contemporary film that Scream Factory was releasing. So I was like, okay, I'm intrigued. And then I found out it was a slasher film, so I'm like, okay, you got me really intrigued now. Then I saw the cover, and I was like, "Oh fuck, man, that cover is sick! Like, I got to see this movie." So when I bought it, got it here. It's another film I've watched quite a few times. It's got the coolest premise ever, man. So basically, we follow this killer that his whole thing is he drives around in this ratty ass car, and basically he bumps into people. Gets into a fender bender, and then he, exchanges information with them, but he gets their information and then goes to their house and kills them. So what he does is, after he kills a victim, he grabs their license plate from their car, puts it on his car, and then travels to another town and does the same thing constantly, town to town to town. So we follow this young girl who is living in a small Arizona town. She's basically out. She just got her license. She's, just experienced in driving for the first time. So she's riding around. She's trying to catch her boyfriend from high school. He's off dating, like hooking up, or not hooking up, but just going on a date with this other girl. So she's sitting there spying on him, watching him, talking to her friends, like, yeah, you guys are right. He's a scumbag. He's a piece of shit. So they're, her parents call her, and she's like, oh shit, I got to get back home. But she's like, I'm dumping this dude or whatever. So she goes home, and in the process of going home, he bumps into her and runs like fucks up the back of her car. And she's really, really freaked out about it because, like I said, she just got her license. This is her first accident. She doesn't really know what to do. It's her mom's car, so she's worried about what's going to happen when she gets home. So she ends up getting home, and you all know she exchanges information with the with the driver, and you know, everything's okay. He comes off a little creepy. He you know, he's very odd. So right away, she's like, you know, as a young girl, she's kind of like her red flags getting thrown up. Like, this guy's a little off, but doesn't think too much of it because she's like, this is the first time this has happened to me, so I'm not quite sure how this goes. I'm just going off of what they told me in driver's school, what I need to do, or what the insurance agency told me to do. So she does what she believes is the right thing, gives the information, doesn't want to get the cops involved because it's a fender bender. It's a small little thing. So she gets back home. She gets in trouble with her parents. She's supposed to go out of town with her parents. They're supposed to go to like I guess it was like a, I don't know, some kind of event that they had planned on for months. And she ends up getting punished. She stays behind, you know, at the house. So she's home alone. And this killer, you know, has her address, has her information. So he comes and stalks her. Her friends come over. There's a body count that ensues. And basically, I don't want to, you know, spoil anything because this is also a newer film, and I really want people to seek this movie out and watch it because it's really, really fun.
Yeah, it's got, I was just looking it up. It's got Cassidy Freeman, I think her name is. She played in, Mackenzie Vega is her name. She played in 13 Reasons Why.
Yeah,
she's like, okay. Yeah, I was like, I've seen her before, and I looked it up, and that's why I saw her from. So
it's pretty cool, man. She's really great in this too, man. She has a genuine, like, sweet personality, and she doesn't seem like, you know, well, she seems like a prototypical final girl. She seems very innocent, very sweet, very, you know, naive, and you know, perfect for this role. And the killer, man, he's a sadistic son of a bitch. Like, he is mean as fuck. Like, he's cruel as shit. And when people see this movie and they see what happens at the end, they'll realize, like, wow, man, that's you know, that's one thing that you just don't expect them to do, that they went there and did. I just love the premise. I think the premise is unique. You don't see that. I've never seen that before. I love slasher films when they have a slasher film and they take a unique premise and do a spin on it. I love that. It's creative. You take some risks and try something different, which I dig. So automatically, I'm like, I love it. The film shot well. The director, I think his name's Mark Pavia, something like that. He also directed a Stephen King movie called Night Flyer, which is a fucking great movie. Came out in the mid 90s. It's a really good vampire flick. It's one of the best of that era. So, you know, like from that on, which is unfortunate. Like these two are the only really things he's done in the horror genre, which is a shame. I wish he would kind of do more, but or wish he kind of did more. But yeah, I love Fender Bender, man. I dig the hell out of it. So much fun. Again, when I watched it, I gave it 3.5 star, but honestly I can go to 4 with this one as well. I just thoroughly enjoy it. Have a good time with it. I've seen it maybe 5 or 6 times since I bought it, and each time I love it the same. It's really, really a great newer slasher film, contemporary slasher film, I should say. So yeah, it's a fun one. Like I said, it's a newer movie, so I don't really want to speak too much on what happens because I don't want to spoil it for everybody, especially when this is when
I'm intrigued. I'd like to check it out.
It's great, man. It's a quick watch too, man. It goes by so fast.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
It's definitely a fun one.
Oh, it's great.
So I watched a little movie called Slaughterhouse. This movie was a fun one too. I feel like I probably would have rated it a little higher had some of the kills been a little bit more polished and the ending would have been a little bit more like less rushed, because I feel like there was again, we go back to that. I mean, granted this is 87, but you know, there was a moment when the movie was on track to like just be awesome, and then they pumped the brakes a little bit. and they kind of toned it down, and then right at the end is where they were like, okay, go, 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 you know. Then you got to the ending, and you were like, damn it. You know, it kind of ended abruptly, and it kind of threw out like a hint that there might be a sequel, you know, and it's like, there's no sequel coming to this. Come on. So yeah, it was a fun one. It was the premise is basically these guys are trying to get it's like the sheriff and some of the higher ups in town. You know, this little small town. I think I want to say this movie was filmed in California, but they made a good job, or did a good job of like making it look like it was filmed in Texas or something. You know, so like the more rural areas of California. But this like sheriff and a couple other people are trying to get this guy to like sell his slaughterhouse because it's kind of like tied up with the land, and they're wanting to use the land and like expand, do stuff. And he's like, no, it's my slaughterhouse. I'm keeping it. You know, I've been here generations, and they're you know, they're also trying to move forward with like more technologically sound ways of like, you know, farming and stuff, and preparing food and all that jazz. And you know, he's like an old fashioned, you know, he runs a slaughterhouse, old fashioned, like he knows how to cut the meat, you know, like he brags about it, and they're not having it. And you're like look, you need to do something here, because you know, and they kept pushing him. So I don't know what would have sparked his son just out of nowhere wanting to kill people. But is him never knowing about it. But some kids, the movie kind of starts off like with these kids kind of trespassing on the land, you know, and then his son is this giant, like a bit of a simpleton, you know, and he's got this big meat cleaver, and he doesn't really talk. He just kind of pig squeals because he's like, I guess he spent his life around pigs, you know. That's like his thing. That's his shtick. But these kids are trespassing, and he kills them. And his dad finds out about it, and he's upset with him. He's like, no, we don't kill these people. They're innocent. The only people we need to kill is this guy. And he's talking about the sheriff and all them trying to make him sell a slaughterhouse. But he you know, so the story kind of progresses from there, and it's actually got some decent gore in the movie, which I was surprised. You know, he had this giant meat cleaver. Which he used quite often, but not for any kills. Like there's weird kills in this movie. Like there's one where he's like hanging over the rafters, you know, in like this little like balcony area, and he reaches down and grabs the guy's head and just like picks him up and squeezes it. I thought that would have been a cool like opportunity for maybe a decapitation scene or something. There is a kill with like a meat grinder. That one was kind of cool, but I don't know. It was just kind of a like, and it was okay. It was a mediocre slasher. Now the killer was really cool. I will say that. I would have liked to have seen more of this kind of character, just because he's like, you know, the Jason Voorhees kind of like, you know, he's just a big monster, you know, chasing after you. Like he wasn't afraid to chase after anybody, you know. And that meat cleaver he had was really cool because it was like custom made and had like this hilt, which was like basically the leg of a pig. You know, you can see the little hoof on the end and all. So it was pretty badass, you know. Cool. But I really wanted to I gave the movie 3 stars. I really wanted to give it more, but you know, the Act 2 and Act 3 were kind of like a bit lackadaisical in their approach until like the very end where they tried to rush it, you know. But I will say that, you know, the characters in the movie weren't really polished enough too, you know. So whenever they would eventually meet their demise, it's like you don't really care. You know what I mean? Like there's no, oh my gosh, I can't, you know. They're just there. They're just fodder for the killer. Yeah. Which you can
no emotional impact whatsoever. It's just
you can make the argument maybe for that's the case for most slashers, but this one it was very like they were just kind of throwaway. You know what I mean? And so that was kind of lame. But so yeah, I mean, decent movie. I'd say check it out. There were a couple things in the movie that like maybe I had a double take. There was a scene actually towards the end of the movie they started using some special effects in 1987 on a low budget slasher. So like there was a scene where it's starting to storm and you can see like lightning in the background and it's blatantly fake lightning. And then there's a scene where he's running up the stairs and the police officer, the girl's father, he's actually the sheriff, pulls the gun out and shoots at the killer, and the killer kind of puts his meat cleaver up, and then where I guess the bullet would have hit the meat cleaver to deflect the bullet, there's like this really bad special effect that like it's like a little red pip that pops up to signify that's where the bullet hit the cleaver. And it just looks real bad. Like, looks like animation you'd see out of like Schoolhouse Rock. It was, and like, if you get a chance, go like fast forward to the end of the movie, you see what I'm talking about. Like, it was weird, but it was an interesting movie, definitely a random. I honestly, it was a blind watch because I went from Slaughter High and I was like, Slaughterhouse, why not?
Why not?
That was kind of my thinking there. So, Slaughterhouse.
I haven't seen that in a while, man. I want to actually revisit it too because it's been so long since I've seen that.
Yeah. Then actually, I did watch The Prowler, which I did talk about that a little bit. But the last movie I watched for this month for the Roulette, a little movie called Doom Asylum.
Oh.
Now, this movie was a fun one, in the most cringiest way, because I was on Tubi and I saw the cover. Arrow apparently had released this movie. The cover looks amazing. I was like, this looks fun. And before I looked up any reviews, I clicked on it and started watching it. And this is when I kind of come up with the rule: like, if you pick a movie, you gotta finish watching it. And I actually watched this with my wife. That was the best part.
Oh God!
Because my wife is my wife's the kind of person like, if she don't like a movie 10, 15 minutes in, she'll tell you like, this movie sucks. I'm like, baby, you got to give it a chance. So I told her, I was like, hey, just a heads up, if I start this movie, I got to finish it because I'm doing it for the Roulette. And she was like, okay. And like, so she basically had a resting what the fuck face for the whole movie. And at one point she looked over, she said, babe, this is torture. I was like, I know, I love it. So Doom Asylum, a horribly disfigured lawyer wrongfully pronounced dead after a terrible car accident is taken into an asylum for a dissection only to come back alive, kill everyone, and make the asylum his killing grounds. So yeah, movie starts off, this lawyer's like riding with his loved one, they're gonna go vacation, have a great time. I guess he just won a case, so he won a bunch of money and he's like all happy. Well, then they get into like one of the longest car wrecks in movie history.
Forgot about that. Yeah.
Well, like they're going around the curve and they see the van and they're just like, they're like screaming for like 30 seconds. So I'm like, Jesus, like just move out the way. Well, they crash, and he's like crawling towards her body, and he goes to grab her hand, and her hand's not attached to her body.
Oh.
So there's like that awkward scene where he's holding the severed hand and screaming. This movie is just chock full with cheese. Like, it's 1988, just chock full of cheese, man. Like, the gore of the movie actually wasn't too bad. That is one thing. Like, the gore was fun. But there's just so many, like, the line deliveries and stuff in the movie are just so cringy. Like, there's so many moments where you're like, those movies you watch and you're kind of like squirming in your chair, like, oh man, this is rough. Like, this is bad. Even like, I like bad movies, and this is bad. Also, how's the killer like credited like 8th on the list of characters on IMDb?
That's weird. Considering they start him up in the beginning as just like the guy that you would expect to be killed by the killer, not the killer himself. Like, you don't like, you would expect him and the girl he's with to be like victims. You don't expect him to become like the slasher villain. So it's funny, like they kind of throw that at you, and it's like, oh wow, it's just you don't expect it.
He's actually ninth. He's listed ninth, with Patty Mullen being first. So this movie does star Patty Mullen from Frankenhooker. It stars our young Kristen Davis. I'm assuming it's her first movie. It's the Sex and the City lady. But so yeah, you had Harrison White played Darnell, who was like the I'll just say token black guy with the gold necklace with his name printed on it. Just to give you an idea of like some of the weird things that happen in this movie. Like there's a scene where they come across, so they go, a group of teenagers, they're going on a picnic to on the lawn in front of an abandoned asylum, because that's what teenagers do. They get there and there's a band playing the most god awful music you'll ever hear. Okay, in an abandoned asylum. So there's electricity in this abandoned asylum, and then back to that. Like every abandoned building in these films have electricity apparently. They sneak in and they start fucking with them. Like they unplug their equipment, so then they get pissed off, and now there's this feud between the two where they decide to the band decides to fill up condoms with water and throw it down at them like water balloons. Darnell falls in love with their drummer, and there's this awkward like daydreaming sequence where they're frolicking. They're frolicking towards each other in the lawn. Yeah. And then there's not once, but twice they do this. Like the first time they do it, they're just kind of they're running towards each other. And then the second time they show it, they actually when they get to each other and you expect them to kiss. No, he picks her up and he starts air fucking her. If you could see the look on my wife's face during that scene, it was priceless. Oh my God. So yeah, Krista Davis's character, she's like the kind of the know-it-all, the smart girl, the know-it-all, the innocent smart girl. Well, by the way, both both Jane and I guess Tina would be her name, our final girl, are wearing bikinis at this picnic because tits and ass. One Piece too. Why not? I don't know. The killer. Okay, let's talk about the killer for a second. Killer laughs at his own jokes. Okay. Yeah. There's a scene where Darnell's walking through the asylum and he's he starts singing an impromptu rap song. Okay. And then when the killer finally gets his hands on him, from behind, and I don't even know what he uses to kill him. It's these big pair of tongs. And puts it in his head, his temples, starts squeezing his head, and Darnell's thinks it's the chick because he's looking for the girl, right? And he says, honey, all you had to say was no. And the killer was like, I hate rap music and don't call me honey. Just terrible lines, one after another. There's a lot of references in this movie too. For it's it's a product of its time. Because it talks a lot about there's a lot of references to the punk movement, punk rock, and even politics for its time. Because the 80s were very influential with all that stuff during the Reagan years. And there's actually a scene where one of the band members, she's walking through, spray painting the walls and stuff, and she's quoting something. I guess she's quoting lyrics or something. I don't know. She's just blabbering on about not being a part of the system and not conforming and blah blah blah. And then she runs into the killer in the bathroom, and which is actually a pretty cool scene because he ends up putting her face in some battery acid or something. It melts her face. It looks pretty gnarly. Yeah, but he grabs her, and as he's putting her head down, she's pleading with the killer. She goes, "I'm a Republican. I voted for Reagan." I guess I guess like trying to say that all Republicans are crazy, vile killers. I don't know. So a bit of social commentary maybe, or a poor attempt there.
So bizarre. It's so bizarre. Well, it adds to the motif because the movie is completely bizarre in itself. So that's no surprise, really.
It's a bizarre movie.
It is really bizarre.
There's just so many. I don't know. There's so many. There's so many little things that just adds up. Like I feel like trying to explain this movie, not giving it justice. Like you have to watch this movie to believe it. Like you have to experience it. There's the boyfriend. I guess Mike was his name, maybe. The boyfriend of Tina was kind of beta male. Like he tried to act tough, but he's like very unsure of himself all the time. You know what I mean? And be like, something like, yeah, I'm sure of it. I think maybe, he was always like guessing himself, and he like, they ran with that trope like throughout the whole movie with his character. There's the rooftop fight scene where Patty Mullen almost kills him. Like he's hanging on the edge of the building and she's just laughing. I was like, this guy falls, he's gonna die. And this makes her a murderer. This would be weird.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. This movie was not trying to steal the phrase from another horror podcaster, but it was batshit, to say the least. But it is fun. It really was a fun movie. Like looking back, I kind of want to go back and watch it again just because how bad it was. But I don't know. And the ending was insane in itself. Just how like she finds the mirror of her mother, because like the whole thing is they're going back to like where her mom died, like right outside this asylum, because it's I guess right there is where they crashed, this asylum. And she finds her mother's mirror on the ground because like it's still there, just buried in the grass. She's like, this was my mother's, and then she stabs the killer in the eye with the mirror, and then just walks off into the distance, like Survivor girl, badass. I guess, I don't know. Bizarre movie, but there is a reference to it. There's a bit of a meta moment too, where they mentioned how they didn't want to separate because they were. He's like, how most horror movies go. We separate. The killer was such and such. Like they were trying to like be very meta with it and like self-aware of what they were, and doing the whole Scream thing, where they talk about like it is a product of what they're talking about, so it's like, but it's very, very poorly done, I guess. So the movie was like just a poor attempt at meta, and but it somehow they made it the funniest movie I've ever seen.
So somehow it succeeded.
Yeah, like it's look, I didn't want to like trash a movie so hard, but I want to get up here and talk about how terrible this movie was, and it was a bad movie. But at the same time, like you have to watch this movie.
It's almost one of those things you have to experience. You have to experience it. Yeah.
And I'm pretty certain I gave this movie a 3-star, but I don't see it on here. Maybe I didn't do a review yet. Maybe I didn't.
Man, because you would have remembered that one.
Yeah. You know what? 2.5 stars. Stick to it. 2.5. And that's it. That's all I watched.
Yeah, those are some fun ones.
So, is that it? You got everything? Anything else to add, man?
No, I'm good.
Cool. Awesome. Anything else to add? Land this plane.
Land this plane.
Awesome. So, ladies and gentlemen, we greatly appreciate you listening once again to our Roulette episode. You have been listening to the Midnight Monster Corner podcast. Be sure to like, share, subscribe on YouTube. Join our Facebook group, join our Twitters. We'd appreciate that. But most of all, leave us a review because that would really help push the show and, kind of get our names out there, get a new listener base, and so that way they can join our groups, be part of the conversations. This has been a long one, but I really enjoyed this episode. A lot of good movies watched here. Give us some feedback. Do you like the Roulette episodes? I know we really enjoy doing the Roulette episodes. So it gives us a chance to clean some backlog up. Let us know what movies you've been watching. If you've had any blind watches, any new movies, or even old movies that you never visited and finally got a chance to watch, let us know. But if there's nothing else to add, gentlemen, we're getting out of here, and we'll see you guys next week.
See you guys next week.
Later.
Peace.